Students are using far too many words in their sentences. Unfortunately, this is true of a lot of work that I am marking at the moment. There are just too many words in the sentences that students are using. They are not being concise. So to improve this, you need to start looking for words that you can cut from a sentence. Here are some words that we can cut in this sentence. Do we need to know that they're using far too many words, or could they just be using too many words? That far can go. And next, we're talking about students and we're talking about them using words. It's probably safe to assume that they're doing it in their sentences. So we can cut that from the beginning of the work as well. Let's take a slightly more complicated sentence that you might find in a student's conclusion. The author of this essay concludes that the academic literature is in broad disagreement about this important issue. 18 words. So let's cut some of the rubbish. To start with, we know it's the author of the essay because they're writing it. So we don't need you to tell us it's the author of this essay that concludes this. Next, does it really matter whether or not the academic literature is in broad disagreement or that it just disagrees on the issue? I would say that saying disagreement is fine. Unless you want to make that qualitative distinction between broad disagreement and disagreement, that word is redundant. Next, about this important issue. We've set you the essay, we know it's an important issue. You're answering the essay, you don't need to tell us that you think it's an important issue. The fact you're writing an essay about it is just fine. So let's take that and rewrite it. We get 10 words and we get this essay concludes that the literature disagrees about this important issue. It's better, it's more concise, but can we make it even more punchier? I would say that we can. What we need to do is get rid of this essay concludes that, because again, we know it's the essay concluding it. It's in the essay at the conclusion. That is redundant information. Let's tidy this most basic idea up. We get scholars disagree about this issue. That's only 5 words, and it still contains the point we make. Josh Burnoff is a writing coach, and he's got this wonderful little mathematical formula you can use to work out how much of the work is actually important in a sentence, how many of the words are actually doing work. You take a total number of words in a sentence, and you divide that by the words that you've identified as doing important work, times it by 100 to get 27.7% of the words that matter in that sentence. Just over a quarter of the words in that original sentence were doing important work. So let's now apply this to just one more sentence that I wrote as an undergraduate student at the University of Exeter on an essay on development. It's this sentence here. Development can occur in many different forms and in many different ways, which makes the notion of dependency a very difficult one to attribute to developing countries. Okay, 26 words. Can we make that more concise? Absolutely we can. All we need to do is go do exactly the same thing, cut the words we don't think are doing anything important, and start to look at the sentence in a different way. We're left with 2 ideas coming through. Development occurs in many different ways, and dependency being difficult to attribute to developing countries. So why not rewrite that to make it more concise? Development has many conflicting definitions. This makes it difficult to measure how dependent developing nations are on the global north. Now, we haven't made a huge cut there. We've only cut 6 words from 26 words, but applying that little test, we do actually see that just over 3/4 of the words in that sentence were doing good. Now, it's often the case that most sentences have a ratio like this. Sentences which actually contain a quarter of the number of words that aren't doing a lot of work. Scale that up to the whole essay, a quarter of your essay might be able to be cut. And that's words you can use elsewhere to make more important points. I've been Dr. Joe Thorogood. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Remarkable.